about the deep strife at home. His dad had a brain tumor, his parents were divorcing. Jahar lost himself in smoking copious amounts of pot, while his overbearing brother tried to ram hot-headed religion into him.
He definitely did not approve of Jahar's party lifestyle. Jahar would say, you know, if he knows what I was doing, he'd probably kick my ass.
Was Jahar scared of his older brother?
He was intimidated, that would probably be the best word. He took him very seriously. He was an authority.
These are the brothers' parents back in Russia when Tamerlan was a baby. Zubeidat, their mother, was a force to be reckoned with too. Zubeidat, long known for her makeup and short skirts, began to cover her head. Finding religion didn't stop her from allegedly shoplifting. She's now back in Russia, having skipped the charges.
We used to pray with my son together. Being religious is helping me a lot. You know, today, when this happened, if I would not be believing in Allah, I don't know if I would survive this.
The FBI's investigation is still under wraps, but the House Intelligence Committee in Washington is being briefed on Tamerlan's connections.
I believe, after looking at all that I have seen, that his mother was involved and probably was involved in bringing him along in radicalization. He had family members encouraging, we know that for sure. We know that he did travel outside. There's lots of expertise on terrorism there that could have pushed him over the top.
We spoke to Zubeidat last week. She denied the congressman's allegations. In Washington, experts who track the internet activity of violent jihadists have pieced together Tamerlan's internet profile.
Tamerlan basically had his own YouTube page, and on it he was liking and posting some different videos.
Tamerlan was interested in Muslim prophecies of apocalyptic battles and in videos glorifying the Islamic struggle for independence from Russia.
This sort of reinforced things for him because there has been this battle between Russia and these noble Muslims, as he views it.
2 years ago, Russia warned the FBI that Tamerlan was already on the road to Islamic extremism. The FBI interviewed him, but the case was dropped for lack of evidence.
A very graphic crime scene. There are 3 dead bodies in the apartment.
Tamerlan also crossed the police radar when news broke that 3 men near Boston were murdered, their throats slit, on September 11th, 2011. Tamerlan was friends with one of the victims. He's now suspected of involvement, but at the time, that investigation too had lapsed. Last year, Tamerlan went back to see his family in Russia's troubled Dagestan. He also briefly visited Chechnya. It's still not clear if he got any training on his 6-month trip. He came back to the US without the FBI noticing. Surely a massive oversight.
Remember, that investigation happened and was closed because they couldn't find any derogatory information. They didn't find one piece that said, hey, this guy is going through radicalization and could be a violent jihadist in the United States.
When Tamerlan came back to Boston, he had frequent outbursts, angry about American drones killing Muslims and about Russia. But still, he only turned up to pray occasionally at this, his Boston mosque. He had 2 outbursts here, though they said he never talked the language of someone who fully understood radical jihad.
There would have been more outbursts than what they were. There would have been confrontations with individual members as they tried to sway people over to their side, their way of thinking. They are intolerant in all aspects of their lives. So if this was going on, whether discreetly or not, someone would have said something.
And we found out that Tamerlan's interests here at home were not just Islamic. He subscribed to publications about government conspiracies, gun rights, and white supremacy. He also read about mass shootings. Tamerlan was perhaps not so much the true radical jihadist as a deeply troubled young man who latched on to Islam. By April, Jahar seemed to be inching towards his decision.
If you have the knowledge and the inspiration, All that's left is to take action.
The brothers went online and found instructions on an Islamic website about how to build a pressure cooker bomb. 3 days before the bombings, the brothers went to the gym to train. Jahar had been his old self, warm and funny. His friends are utterly bewildered that he had another side.
There's like two Jahars now. The Jahar that I knew, and then the Jahar that allegedly was the, mass murderer. So it seems to me that it was very, very, very well hidden, compartmentalized, or that he had a radical change. And I sort of feel like he had this radical change.
No Islamic group has claimed any connection with the Boston bombings. The brothers became extremists in the privacy of their American home. They seem to be lone wolves.
Al-Qaeda has begun to call for lone wolf attacks in the past 3 or 4 years, and it's possible that this could have resulted in what we saw in the UK and France related to some of the attacks against the soldiers.
The brothers were on their way here to New York before they were caught, carrying at least 5 bombs. And about 500,000 people pass through Times Square a day. But if the next terrorist is already right here in America, operating alone, then it could be almost anyone. So, how far is America prepared to go to find them? Some say it's time to take the gloves off.
Political correctness has got to stop with regard to the war on terror. As we go forward, no holds barred. We need to infiltrate the groups that we feel like are threatening the American way of life.
This is America's prime terrorist target, New York City. Its anti-terror squad is equipped with state-of-the-art technology in the air, on the water, and on the ground. There have been at least 40 attempted terror plots in America since 9/11.
I got a guy walking in a white shirt right here. He's below us.
New York's police are proud of the plots they foiled
Wall Street's underneath us.
and of how closely they can now monitor strategic targets.
Right now they're zooming in on some construction workers on the bridge. These cameras are so powerful that they can zoom in on someone's face from up to half a mile away.
But several plots nationwide have slipped through the net, failing only because of bad planning, including a separate plan to blow up Times Square. In a secret location in Lower Manhattan, we were given a glimpse of the control center, where New York's police is now stepping it up. Images from 4,500 cameras on the streets are beamed in here.
We are going to look for someone wearing a red shirt. So we're going to hit the search button. This is going to pull up every frame where someone is wearing a red shirt. So we can click on any one, and you'll see coming down the street, sure enough,
There he is. Right.
the person in the red shirt.
But is there more to this than meets the eye? The NYPD has been accused of spying on Muslims over at least a 100-mile radius. These secret documents show how the police have mapped Muslim shops and mosques, block by block, all over the city of Newark, so they can listen in on locations of concern. Like many Muslim establishments, this mosque was listed in the report. Few pray here now. Police informants have infiltrated some mosques posing as locals. Now, no one is sure who is who. And the mosque leaders say no one here has ever been charged with any terrorist connections. Glenn Caton is suing the NYPD on behalf of Muslims here for what he calls blatant religious discrimination.
This whole program treats Muslims as inherently suspect, which is exactly what our Constitution forbids, right? It's only Muslims, as if Muslims are the only ones who are committing, criminal or even terrorist acts.
New York's police are trying to build relations with the Muslim community. NYPD Commissioner Ray Kelly says there is no spy program.
The so-called mapping that we did was authorized by the court to find out more information about where communities are in this most diverse city.
I'm just trying to get an understanding of how your surveillance of the Muslim communities works. And you're saying that
Right.
basically
No, I
it's-
mean, I think you're characterizing it the wrong way. Surveillance of the Muslim community, we don't do that. What we do is follow leads in an investigation, and we'll go wherever those leads take us. But surveillance of the Muslim community is not happening.
In Washington, some politicians don't mince their words, saying surveillance of Muslims could stop another Boston-style attack.
We've infiltrated drug cartels, we've infiltrated the mafia. So what's wrong? What's so wrong with infiltrating the mosque and the Muslim community with law enforcement to try to thwart the deaths of Americans like we saw in Boston?
The problem, though, is one of trust. At Tamerlan's mosque in Boston, they said they'd naturally have reported Tamerlan if he had seemed like a radical. But they said other mosques being spied on might not feel so inclined.
If you can't trust me, I'm not going to trust you. If I bring you information, are you going to be grateful, or are you going to assume I'm in on the plot and put me in jail? If you think that there is one or two things slipping through the cracks now, it's going to be 10 times as worse if that's how they want to deal with it.
if law enforcement is looking for that kind of stereotypical radical Muslim, and that's not who the Boston bombers were, isn't that a huge problem? Because you're making that community angry and also potentially missing the real threat.
The Boston radicalization of Tamerlan wasn't an isolated incident. This has happened. And so the Muslim community doesn't have to get angry. They can willingly assist us and provide information about when they see bad things happening.
Jahar, recently brought to court, denied all charges, but he's already been judged guilty by the public. The evil he helped unleash in stark contrast to his soulful-looking image. If convicted, he faces life imprisonment or the death penalty.
I don't know which way. There, oh, come on.
Roseanne, 4 months on, is taking her first steps.
Oh.
It was Jahar's bomb, not his brother's, that blew her leg off.
Come on. Yeah. You look great.
Roseanne was in a coma for 2 days before she knew she'd make it.
My family was told. And then I would live. So they brought me out and told me about my leg. But morphine's a great drug. I guess I was cracking jokes.
Well, you
So,
are now,
yeah.
which is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's not a joke, but that's the way I'm dealing with it because I just have to move forward. I can't look back at it.
Tamerlan was an angry, explosive man, but Jahar gave nothing away. That, to those who best knew him, is what's most disturbing.
He seemed to be such a good, well-balanced kid. And maybe that's what we have to watch out for now, the kids who don't show any cracks. There were no cracks.
A relay across America came into Boston the night before we left. Some of the victims braved coming here to the same finish line. An act of defiance in a country now living with a new kind of terrorist. The enemy within